been a while, and I hit 30, so this should be a character video, but I want to space them out a little better, so the next one's just gonna be a character video. um, but in my sensory issues video, I talked about sort of the vicious cycle of sound and then stress, and then if I can't get out of that cycle, a meltdown will ensue. So I wanted to talk a little bit about overstimulation and then meltdowns with two examples from my own life, one of which happened before my diagnosis and the other of which happened after, just sort of to illustrate what happens and when it happens and all that stuff. So overstimulation, any kind of sensory overload, for me, it's usually auditory related. I don't often get sensory overstimulation looks a little different. Like I said, textures I don't like, I often register as pain, but that's not quite the same as, say, just auditory and then like social overstimulation can both happen and lead to meltdowns. So when I'm auditory overstimulated, everything just keeps sounding louder and louder, and I'm getting progressively more stressed and sort of desperate for any quiet, which if I'm at home, I can just go to my room, but if I'm out, that gets a little tougher. And social stimulation, if I'm out especially, like it's often auditory and social overstimulation, which is just a really bad combination. So I think the best way to do this, I think, is with examples. One is when I was about 12, and my family went to Disneyland, and it was a lot of fun, but if you've been to Disney, it's super noisy, incredibly noisy, and a lot of it's fun noise, there's a lot of music, and they are good about making sure that you're only ever hearing the music from one spot at a time. They're good about the sound mixing so that the music doesn't overlap too much. If they didn't do that, it would be orders of magnitude worse. But on this trip, I had a lot of fun. We were there for about a week. And on one of the last days, like our second to last day in the park, I think, I broke down crying. It was kind of embarrassing, actually, but let me set the scene. For the past 5 days, we'd flown, for one thing, which was exciting, but airports can be a lot. And it was basically 5 days of being separated from my normal routine, which can be kind of bad. And going just kind of from one thing to the next, which even though I loved all the stuff we were doing, it was a lot. I mean, we would go, I don't know, from ride to ride and experience to experience. And part of the reason the meltdown was so embarrassing was because I actually had a lot of fun and I knew nothing was actually wrong. But we had stopped for lunch, and what I had gotten was just slathered in barbecue sauce, which I really hate barbecue sauce. And that was, I don't know, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I just started sobbing, and I was able to calm down eventually once I got some food that I could eat. But it was embarrassing because people were asking me like, wait, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I was like, I know nothing's actually wrong, but I'm crying and I don't really know why I'm crying. And when it happens, it kind of feels like my brain is in half. I don't know. Because there's like half of me that's crying, half of me that can't really think and is just crying, and the other half of me that is sort of trying to rationalize out, like, what am I upset about right now? Nothing's actually wrong. And I know that. Intellectually, I know that. So why is this other part of my brain going haywire? Why am I crying? And yeah, I had a fun rest of the day after I ate and got some water and stopped crying eventually, but we didn't know at the time that I was on the spectrum, so it was very confusing for me and all concerned, because it's like, I'm at Disneyland and I'm actually having a really great time, so I don't know why I'm crying. But in retrospect, it makes sense because lights, noise, nothing was familiar for the past 5 days, which was hard. Even though it was a lot of fun, it was hard. And Space Mountain I went on Space Mountain. I think it might have been broken or something. There were no lights. It was scary. The I also wore glasses at the time, and I am like legally blind without corrective lenses, so I had to take my glasses off, which means it's just me hurtling at breakneck speed through this pitch black tunnel. The camera is literally me like it was very bad. So there were a few rides that were a little too much. Most of the rides were fun. A lot of the experiences were fun too. I liked Star Wars stuff. I wasn't Galaxy's Edge wasn't a thing when I was there, but there was some Star Wars stuff in Tomorrowland, which was cool. So that was all really fun. But yeah, the constant new things got to be a little bit much right at the end there. And yeah, so I had a little meltdown, started crying, couldn't stop crying. I don't remember how long I was crying for, but eventually I stopped, and the rest of the trip was fun. And then once I got my diagnosis, it has gotten better because I have better coping mechanisms and less embarrassment about utilizing those coping mechanisms. It's like, okay, this is a legitimate problem and it will be better for me and everyone else around me if I just get to a quiet place. So I've gotten better about like self-advocating and being like, hey, is there a quiet place I can go? Because nobody wants to know what's going to happen if I don't get to a quiet spot. Not to say that doesn't still happen. There was a road trip I took a couple of years ago. Yeah, wow, almost 2 years ago now. That's kind of funny. To visit some relatives I'd never met before. And so it was a day and a half of driving, and it was really hot, really humid, and the air was bad from wildfires. So a day and a half of driving. The evening was spent meeting these relatives I'd never met before, introductions. And then the next day, the entirety of the next day, was more relatives I'd never seen before, and being in a bunch of different new places, lots of people, lots of interacting, and it was, yeah. And then another half day of driving, and then finally getting to collapse at home. But on the drive back, I ended up just weeping in a McDonald's bathroom stall because I was so overstimulated from the driving and all the new people and the new places we'd been to and the complete lack of any kind of routine for the past 2-3 days. Also at this time I was on some really nasty meds for Lyme's disease. So it was just a combination of factors that could only ever really have gone one way. But I was no, so on the third day, the second half day of driving, we were like in McDonald's and I was at that like cognitively not very present because oh my gosh, I'm so overstimulated. I just need to get home to my familiar surroundings and sleep. Just completely crash on the couch. No one talk to me for 24 hours because I will not be coherent until then. And it's a simple question. My dad was like, do you want something from McDonald's? And I can't eat at McDonald's. It's a whole nother story. But I can have some like their drinks and stuff. But when he asked me, I just started crying. And I couldn't stop crying, so I was in the McDonald's bathroom. And I knew why it was happening. I knew it was like, I'm overstimulated. And I'm having a meltdown. Which helped me feel less embarrassed about what was happening, but didn't, like, I can't just stop it from happening. I can't turn it off. And it still felt a little bit like the dividing in half thing I mentioned, where it's like, part of my brain is trying to reason this out and knows that, like, nothing's actually wrong. Maybe in that case there was actually something wrong because, as I said, nasty medications for Lyme disease. I'm all better now, by the way. But there's still that part of me that's completely irrational and just like radio silence crying. And I can't stop myself. And eventually I got an iced coffee with chocolate in it and some water, and I was better. And then we stopped in Amish country to eat, which it was very good. And we were able to just relax a little bit. And then I was fine. But yeah, that whole trip was crazy. So since my diagnosis, I know why they happen and I can better take steps to avoid them happening. But even so, if I get to the point where one happens, so like in the case of this road trip, it was kind of unavoidable that I was going to be in a lot of unfamiliar situations. My tolerance for things was lower than normal because of medical stuff, and the air was bad, and it was really hot. And turns out you're not supposed to be in direct sunlight while you're on the particular medication I was on, which I didn't know until after 3 days of direct sunlight. So that was a whole mess. But I can tell that, so yeah, when these happen, and they haven't, something like this hasn't happened for a while because I'm better about gauging. This looks like a meltdown situation. I feel like I'm going to have a meltdown. I need to remove myself from this situation, or put my headphones on and listen to some music or something. Coldplay is really good for that. If I'm completely overwhelmed, I just like earbuds Coldplay. I don't think it might not help everybody, but it does for me. I think, I don't know, something about the slightly psychedelic feel of some of their instrumentals. I don't know. But yeah, it's better, and I have a better gauge of these are the situations where I'm probably going to have a meltdown. I should avoid those, and I feel less embarrassed and weird about avoiding them because I have my diagnosis and I can be like, okay, this is a legitimate thing that I need to do for my own mental health. It's not just weird. I'm not weird or antisocial or anything like that. It's just a thing I have to do for me to be mentally healthy. So that's one thing I will say is like if it happens, and this goes for anybody, like it's not happening on purpose. I can't control it. I can't make it stop. I just kind of have to let it ride its course if it gets bad. And seek out a quiet place where it can run its course and I can get myself under control again. And once that happens, I'll be okay. I just know now I need to have a quiet place. And that's good. Or just avoid overstimulation, which isn't always possible.